Tulsi supporters are 100% the most classy I've ever seen. They're the most intelligent and well-researched supporter. But what we're trying to say is that basically every candidate except for Tulsi has had the most toxic supporters, and the only quote-unquote mean Tulsi supporters, they're reacting to the fucking vitriol that they've had to deal with for the entire last year.
Everybody has bad support, but, you know.
Yeah, but, well, that Naomi girl... Yeah, but well, that Naomi girl from Twitter was like the weirdest Tulsi supporter I've ever. Like,
oh, I know.
She was like, she likes Tulsi and doesn't agree with anything like principally that Tulsi supports.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Like, she's always surprised.
But
like when
Tulsi has a and how Tulsi frames things though is so perfect because she doesn't put a label on it, but she's literally passing the same policies or advocating for the same policies as Bernie is. But she doesn't have the label of a democratic socialist. And if more people realize that, that ticket, any sort of, combination would be on.
We've seen some of the horrific smears on Bernie Sanders in 2016, and we're seeing them today. However, they're a lot less simply because Tulsi Gabbard is in the race. She actually takes the brunt and a lot of those smears away from Bernie. And if that is the case, why on earth would I want Bernie Sanders as a Bernie Sanders supporter, would I want Tulsi to drop out?
We can't ignore the fact that she's been slandered and maligned and, just lied on oftentimes by Bernie Sanders' own surrogate.
Nico, I've been to a lot of Tulsi events, okay, in multiple states. There's a lot of libertarians and independents that simply will not vote for Bernie Sanders, especially those libertarians. So if Tulsi is the only candidate that will really give her delegates to Bernie at the end, doesn't it just make sense for her to stay in this thing as long as possible to collect those votes that Sanders will never get and then eventually give it to him? Go ahead, Nico.
Well, yeah, I 100% agree. It's almost nonsensical to believe that Bernie can win this by himself. However, there are plenty of people, in my experience as a Tulsi supporter, that will not vote for Bernie for whatever reason. And that's just a fact. Now, if Tulsi began to do well and Tulsi gained delegates, then, hey, maybe if Tulsi said, this is why I'm doing so, the delegates would be okay with going to Bernie Sanders in the first round before that second round starts and the super delegates can pick. Right now, we've seen so many people dedicated to more so to telling Tulsi to drop out than seeing the play on the field, not only for this election in 2020, but setting up Tulsi's message, saying like, look, even if she doesn't get a single delegate, which would be unfortunate for Bernie, but even if she doesn't, we got to make sure that this message continues because Bernie has one more election and that is it. And if he gets cheated out of this one, well, maybe we should be backing and supporting a candidate. Even if you voted for Bernie, you can still back and support a candidate's message. The only one who has been calling out open election fraud and election. And what you have to do if you're a Bernie supporter is like, man, look, you might not like Bernie, but hey, if you're a conservative or if you're a right-leaning independent, this is the girl you got to vote for because look at her election integrity issues. Look at how she stands up to DNC. And at this point, because I feel like it's too late to do a lot of the things that we would have liked to seen done as far as maybe a coalition, but we gotta try to get Tulsi back in the position where she can start taking out some of these candidates because she can do that regardless if she's on Bernie Sanders' campaign or not. But she has more liberty when she's by herself to take out people than with being with Bernie's campaign. You have to, kind of talk around the edges, so to speak. So that's what I think we should be doing.
I like her immensely. And I like her immensely as an attack dog for Sanders. Let her be a surrogate once again as she once was, and let her be that bold voice.
Now, I will say this, though. If Tulsi said, hey, I made this particular deal with Bernie, it doesn't have to be publicized, but we're going to work to get him elected. Then she would be in a position to maybe call, if she is free to call election integrity, for example, election integrity issues. If she is free to call out the military-industrial complex freely, rather than being handcuffed by the campaign for any number of reasons, things like that, then, I would lean more towards Steve and say, you know what, okay, let's get it. Let's do what we got to do and handle business. But until we can get that guarantee, until we can get a vice presidential pick guaranteed, until we can come up with a plan to address election integrity, then it's very, very important that the only person who's addressing election integrity, asking for diplomacy without demonizing and alienating world leaders, the only person who is calling it straight and really fighting and fending for herself against all odds, that's the person that should remain in the race regardless of what the outcome should be. And that's just how I feel about it.